With pick 35, the Tennessee Titans took Auburn cornerback Roger McCreary, and I was pretty surprised to see them value cornerback so highly, but it didn't surprise me at all that McCreary was a player they liked. In 2021, he was targeted 75 times, resulting in 34 receptions, 442 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and 13 pass breakups. So extremely productive and battle-tested. He's got 3 years of starting experience in the SEC, going up against players who were drafted this year and guys who have been in the NFL for a while. McCreary is actually very similar as a prospect to Elijah Molden. They were both extremely productive college defensive backs with middling athletic traits, and so how you balance those two things will determine what grade you have on McCreary. I had Elijah Molden at 75 on my board last year, and McCreary was 81 on this year's board, so I do think that this pick was a bit of a reach, but that's just my evaluation. McCreary was 45th on the consensus board, so most people viewed him as a second-round talent. Auburn's defense pretty much only ran cover 1 and cover 3. 78% of coverage snaps last season were in one of those two coverages, and they also ran a lot of press. Roger McCreary's 226 press coverage snaps ranked 10th among FBS corners in 2021. So unlike a lot of college defensive backs, there was nothing about Auburn's scheme that was designed to hide or protect their corners. Roger McCreary pretty much lived on an island in press man or press bail against the best receivers in the country and produced the highest PFF grade of any cornerback last season. When I think of a press corner, the defining athletic trait for me is arm length. I just think of the Legion of Boom with Richard Sherman and Byron Maxwell playing press coverage every snap, and they've got 32, 33-inch arms that help them land their punches super effectively and blanket receivers at the line of scrimmage. But McCreary has the second shortest arms of any cornerback to play in the NFL since 1999, and when I'm looking at combine and pro day numbers, I care most about the outliers. Guys who are in the top or bottom 5th percentile in certain drills. Those are the players whose grades are going to be most impacted by athletic testing. And so the arm length for Roger McCreary, while it doesn't take him off my board or anything, it does make me view him as a slot only. The rest of his athletic testing wasn't great, but very similar to Traylon Burks, he did enough to check the boxes. A 4.5 flat is perfectly fine for a cornerback, especially one that I've seen cover Jamison Williams, Henry Ruggs, Jamar Chase, Jahan Dotson, and a bunch of other NFL players step for step. McCreary's best trait is his balance. He does an outstanding job controlling his weight displacement and maintaining leverage, and so he's extremely effective defending curl routes and stop and goes from a press alignment. He's really good at using his hands to feel the receiver's route, and he can sink his hips and stop on a dime, but then if the receiver continues vertically, he has the reaction time and acceleration to stick with the route downfield. He has a tendency to declare his hips too early, but he's a twitchy enough athlete that he can usually get back in phase. Right here, John Mechie gets him turned around, but McCreary has the hip fluidity to turn 180 degrees and recover. On this play against Arkansas, he's in off coverage, and again, not great with his hips at the beginning, but he's explosive enough to close off the separation and break up the pass. Here's another rep against John Mechie. He's going to release outside, use a rocker step, and then break inside. And if you watch how McCreary plays this, right when Mechie starts to break, McCreary throws up the inside hand, and he's trying to punch the outside shoulder to disrupt the route and make it easier to stay attached. He misses with the first punch, that's where the arm length factors in, but he isn't relying solely on that punch to keep himself in good position. He's still mirroring his hips to the route, so when Mechie breaks inside, McCreary is still in tight coverage despite missing with his hands. And then later in the same game, watch how McCreary's able to just keep his hips locked onto John Mechie. Mechie's going to go outside, inside, and back outside, and the entire time McCreary keeps himself in great position. This is exactly where McCreary wants to be a couple seconds into the play, on top of the route and active with his hands. He's not someone who wants to play a lot of trail technique. He wants to be patient at the line of scrimmage and then jam about 10 yards downfield to cap the receiver's route. Right here, Jamison Williams does an inside speed release, and McCreary isn't trying to jam at the line of scrimmage. He's fine letting the receiver declare his release, but then by about 10 to 15 yards, McCreary is back on top of the route. And college is much more lenient with hand contact down the field, but this isn't holding, and it's not really about trying to slow the receiver down. It's mostly about using your hands to keep yourself in proper position. So if you try to hit him with a go route down the sideline or a slot fade, Once you get about 5 or 10 yards downfield and you haven't broken your route horizontally, Roger McCreary is just going to punch that shoulder and keep himself on top. Another advantage of this play style is that it makes it way easier to play the ball. If you've got your back turned to the quarterback and you want to play the ball downfield, you pretty much have to read the receiver's eyes and hands and try to time it perfectly. But if you're face up with the receiver, you're also going to be face up with the quarterback, so it's really easy to watch both players simultaneously. I was a little bit surprised that McCreary didn't have a better 3-cone and short shuttle, but going back and rewatching the tape, I realized that he isn't actually that quick athletically. His reaction time is just so good that it makes you think he would be. So when there's a break right at the end of the route and the quarterback gets the ball out on time, that's when you see McCreary give up the most separation. Or if he's playing the deep third and cover 3, he's not going to be a huge factor covering up the seams, but like I said, his reaction time is usually so good that it makes up for it. Right here, John Mechie gives a jab step to the outside. McCreary steps back with the outside foot, but then reacts immediately to the inside break and forces an incompletion. Here's another play. Auburn's in quarters. You get jet motion from the number 2 and then a wheel route from the running back on the opposite side of the formation. I like this play design because it would be easy for this running back to get lost in everything that's happening, but McCreary knows his assignment and makes the stop. At the catch point, Roger McCreary has really good timing as far as when to break on the ball. He's never there too early or too late. The arm length concerns do show up at times when he's trying to break up the pass, but his win percentage in contested catch situations is very high. So just to give you a peek behind the curtain into my evaluation process, every player that I give a grade to, I watch a minimum of 3 full games, usually a few more, but always at least 3. And with Roger McCreary, I watched 5 games, Alabama, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Penn State, and Texas A&M, and I gave him a 4.73, which is a late third, and it made him my 81st overall player and 8th ranked corner. But over the last couple days, I've watched a few more games, and I don't usually do this, but I am going to bump his grade up to 5.22, which is an early 3rd round grade that puts him at 62 on my board. And the main reason for that bump is that given the style of press coverage that Roger McCreary plays, I'm actually less concerned about the impact his arm length will have in the NFL. He's not this guy that's just overwhelming receivers at the line of scrimmage and being super aggressive with his punches. McCreary's press technique is way more about footwork and route recognition, which length doesn't really matter for. If someone like Sauce Gardner, who's just trying to take you out of the play right at the line of scrimmage, if he had like 29-inch arms, I'd be a lot more concerned. But with McCreary, considering his play style and level of competition, I decided that I was being a little bit too harsh. If you want to say that the Titans drafted someone and I increased my grade because I'm a Titans fan, that's fine, but it really has nothing to do with that. So overall, I really like Roger McCreary as a player. I still do think that 35 overall is a little too rich for me, especially when someone like Kyler Gordon, Jalen Petrie, or Andrew Booth Jr. were still available. And I'm also not entirely sure what McCreary's role is going to be. I'm the last person who's going to tell you to draft for need, but I do think you should draft players who have a clear path to seeing the field. And if Caleb Farley is good, I don't really see that for McCreary. The one thing that comes to mind is maybe when Tennessee goes into dime, they want to have Elijah Molden as the 3rd safety and McCreary as the slot corner. And I can also see McCreary being a better matchup against faster slot receivers. I don't know. Ultimately, you add a talented defensive back, so it's hard for me to go much lower than a C+ for the Roger McCreary pick. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and check out my Patreon if you want to support the channel and get access to extra content.